I like being an underdog. That was one thing about Forbes under 30 that took away that underdog that I typically had. I'm one of those people want to prove people wrong, want to have that enemy. Just recently read a book by Patrick Bet David, and it's about choose your enemies wisely. My year in 2023 honestly was not a good year based on my standards. Just looking at how 2021 was, that was our first full year of business. At 2022, just overall, just about every single personal in business best that we had we beat in 2022, and then 2023 was stagnant. And so I was really trying to figure out why. I was able to read the book, and then he was talking about enemies and how to select the enemy. And I truly realized from that book, I didn't have that enemy pretty much since November 29th, 2022. That's when the Forbes Under 30 came out. Since that moment, that was pretty much the checkmate to all my enemies. And so then I didn't have an enemy. And so then I had to create a new enemy. And then I wasn't able to, actually discover what that was until, December.
Welcome to Pinnacle Code, where we spotlight excellence in the culture. I am your host, Ben Arthur, excited to be joined by Caleb Smith. He is an esports entrepreneur. He was on the Forbes 30 under 30 list for the education space. He runs the North Carolina Esports Academy, which he founded with his father. He's committed to education and youth development through not only esports, but also coding and STEM education as well. He's doing big things and humbled and grateful to have him on this week's episode of Pinnacle Code. Caleb, thanks so much. How's everything going?
Hey, everything's going great. Really appreciate you having me on here today.
No problem, no problem. And let's kind of hop right into it, right? So I know you're from Durham, North Carolina. What do people need to know about your upbringing there to understand who you are today?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very nice part of Durham, near South Point Mall, which I heard now is may not be all that great as what it, once was. But really about the upbringing. So my dad, he was, three-sport athlete in college, and, it was always a thing of, brought up in wherever you do, strive for excellence, always working hard at something, be a leader. And, it didn't really matter what you did, even like a small task, but, doing things, to the best of your ability. And so, my parents always had us in different activities and a lot about exposure when I was younger. And I mean, I think that was, really important because I got to see a large glimpse of the world. And,
Mm.
my two favorite things were, sports and video games. And then, and middle school, youth they actually decide on careers in middle school. May not be like the career exactly itself, but a lot of youth are actually deciding their careers while they're in middle school. And so, my thing is I always wanted to, be a professional soccer player and do something about video games. I thought I was gonna create video games, make them something like that. Didn't end up doing that, but you see now what I'm doing within the esports space here.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you talked about your dad, Caleb, and how he was quite the athlete too. And I know he's super well educated too. Like he has several degrees, and whatnot. But specifically with athletics, and you talking about your passion for soccer, I know you have a really unique story in that you went overseas after high school. Like you didn't go to college, right? You played professional soccer in Germany. I'm curious, what did you maybe learn about yourself in being overseas?
So there was a lot to be learned from that, just seeing a completely different culture, being immersed in that, and knowing, there was a completely different sides to the world, but not just the German culture. There was a lot of different. I lived in Bonn, Germany, which is outside Cologne. A lot of people don't know this in America, but Bonn is the capital of, or was the capital of West Germany. Back when there was East and West Germany, and there was a lot of history to that, as well as we meet the people. I mean, there were people there from, Turkey, and then there was people from a lot of different countries. Bonn was a popular area where people would go to work and study. So just being around that, meeting people from, all over Europe and Africa and some from Asia, just those different cultures, And then really with the Islamic religion, all what I learned about that, and then, people are always impressed with how much, I know about that, the religion, because, I was there, was able to talk with them on a regular basis, whereas opposed to I learned that a lot of, people, especially here, they're very, blinded and one-sided when it comes to different cultures or religions. And so it was really great to get, those experiences. Learn about myself. I do not like weather that's cold and raining, and which they don't like it either over there. I learned I was not as great at soccer as I thought I was. And,
It's not a
you
different
know,
whole different level out there.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
completely different. But I did, gain my passion, well, I did, was while over in Germany where I actually, decided I wanted to be in esports. So that was one thing I did get out of, being over there. I mean, I think there was a lot to be learned by, I did get to learn another language, but overall, not taking the approach of go to college, like everyone else was saying, but having to find, an alternative route. And I think, you know, that really helped me in the long run because, and also, I like being an underdog. That was one thing about Forbes under 30 that took away, that underdog that I typically had. But
Mm,
with them being the underdog because, I'm one of those people's like, wanna prove people wrong, wanna, to have that enemy, just recently read a book called by Patrick Bet David, and it's about choose your enemies wisely. And then, my the year in 2023 honestly was not a good year based on my standards, just looking at how 2021 was, that was our first full year of business, and 2022 just, overall, just about every single personal in business, best that we had, we beat in 2022, and then 2023 was, stagnant. And so I was really trying to figure out why, but then that book came out and it was very convenient for me. So the book came out the day before I actually took my trip to Dallas. It was December 6th it came out, and then well, no, December 5th, I believe it came out and was delivered. December 6th, I took the trip over to Dallas. So I was able to read the book and then he was, Patrick David was talking about enemies and how to select the enemy. And I truly realized from that book, I didn't have that enemy,
mm,
and all pretty much since November 29th, 2022. That's when the Forbes Under 30 came out. Since that moment, that was pretty much the checkmate to all my enemies. And so then I didn't have an enemy. And so then I had to create, a new enemy and then I wasn't able to, actually discover what that was until, December of 2023. And so we're pretty much like a year, over a year without having an enemy, which that was, the reason being why the business was stagnant during that year.
mm. That's really fascinating, Caleb, and I almost feel like with you, like, having been a high level athlete, you kinda understand maybe having a chip on your shoulder and being an underdog because, I mean, I grew up as an athlete too. I mean, I didn't quite reach the levels that you reached in your sport, but I think with a lot of people with an athletic background, they do maybe have kinda like that underdog type of mentality or were able to cultivate that. But I'm curious, like, going off of that, like, how how did you maybe identify, like, your new, uh how did you, I guess, kind of re-identify, like, that underdog mentality? Because you said for, like, what, like, a year and a half, you're trying to find that fuel. So what form did that take for you?
It was really from reading the book, and then he gave, clear examples in the book. Patrick Bet David gave, ways of how to find that enemy. And I actually didn't know until reading the book. And then, that was actually the second time, because the other book before in December 2020, I'd read his book, Your Next Five Moves, and that book saved the business. And then fast forward 3 years later in December 2023, he has another book that just recently comes that just came out, and that book ended up, saving the business. So, and I'm a huge reader, but I've only read cover to cover 5 books since, starting the business. One has been
Mm,
Patrick Bet David's. I didn't finish Choose Your Enemies Wise. I think I got like 50, 60 pages, and I was like, "Well, got what I needed out of this," and then haven't picked it up since. But you know, I knew I lost something. I mean, I just didn't know what it was. And so, I was just trying to figure it out, like, why am I stagnant? Why am I not, pushing? Why don't I have this drive anymore, as part of me? and, there was nothing driving me, there was no enemy, nothing I was fighting against or anything, and so, the whole time, I mean, I just knew, like, I had that feeling, it's like, when like, you forgot something, you can't figure it out what it was or whatever, it was just that, I'm like, "I've lost something," like, I don't know what it is, but I was like, it's just something's gone, like, something just felt off,
Mm.
in me throughout that entire time. And then, by reading that, I finally found out, okay, this is what it is, this is what's off.
So for you, was it almost like that chip? Was it just finding that within yourself almost, and not looking to like the outside? It was almost like you having to internalize or like look inside yourself for that chip, for that edge to keep going in your business. Is that kind of what it was? Like almost very personal and not looking at the external, what the perception is of you, but almost like trying to one up yourself like in your own head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a little bit. So I won't say exactly what it
Got it.
was, but
Gotcha.
it's not an individual person now. That's the enemy. So that
Mm,
was the whole thing because, pretty much, I mean, there was some coaches, different classmates, other people, who go up like, oh, you're not gonna be successful if you don't go to college, or you're not gonna do, whatever it might be. But pretty much, then when it's Forbes under 30 and for the education category, it's like people can always gonna say something, but it's like at that point, it's like, okay, seriously, really, like there's nothing anyone can say at that point that's really going to be able to have some effect that's gonna like really drive me. I mean, because at that point they're just talking. It's like that person that won't admit like Kobe sucks, Kobe's not a good basketball player, whatever. It's like, okay, seriously, like that
oh,
that
yeah,
you're never gonna win that person over. It's like, but that person, that's what he talks about too. Like there's people that aren't worth your time and energy, and that's clearly you know, some, one of the so that's what, all the previous enemies, that's where it was to the point was like, they were just haters, it's like
exactly.
crickets, it's like, okay, whatever. So but, really being able to, find what that enemy was and then, and that enemy's everywhere. And, I see that enemy in news articles all the time. I see that enemy just taking place, I see that enemy in like the enemy's in other people, but like I said, it's the enemy, this is not a person itself, it's more of a
Mm,
thing. And so, from that, it's working, how it's for example, like a person who they said, I'm like real health big health person, but people that like, oh, these big companies, they're putting toxic ingredients, into foods or whatever. We're working to get, that stuff out of it. We want to fight against that. We want to educate people. It's not really, I mean, it's somewhat the companies, it's somewhat the people, that they're fighting against, but it's more so they're fighting against the overall like knowledge, like what knowledge is being told to people. Cause some things, like natural flavors, like, oh, natural flavors are fine, they're natural, they are not fine, they are not natural, they're not healthy. But then so the whole thing is like to actually really convince people and change their mindset. And so then, what you're battling against then is, the media and the propaganda. So then more so like the media and propaganda is their enemy, for example, and
mm.
not, it's not like a person, it's not a company, anything like that. Cause the main thing is like they're not fighting against the companies. If everyone stopped eating a certain food, they would stop manufacturing it. So, that's happened in different situations, companies added stuff, people stopped eating it, and then they took it out because 'cause they're like, "Oh, people aren't buying it again." So, that's really, what helped me be able to, identify, find that enemy, and then now it's put me in a driven spot to where with this current enemy, I mean, I don't see it to where it's gonna be very challenging for me to win against this enemy, so I see this being able to drive me, for many, many years.
Yeah, no, that's great what you're saying. And I think it brings a great point about like, like whoever's listening, like kind of the journey you're on, because like you could have like growing up, like you could have detractors or criticism. And at that time, it may seem kind of valid, but then you may reach a certain point, like as you did, to where you get like Forbes 30 under 30 for education space. And then at that point, they just become haters, right? And then you have to continue to elevate almost to find that new motivation. And I love that you've found that kind of in your life in your own regard. I wanna touch again on Germany real quick because you talked about, like, how you were kinda immersed in almost a diversity of, experiences just in terms of Islam and being around different kinds of people, like, obviously, culture is very different there. But I'm wondering, like, being, like, a Black American, I'm wondering how your perspective on the Black experience changed from living there for what, 3 you were there 3
3
years,
years, that's
correct?
right.
Yeah, so how did maybe your perception of being Black change when you were in Europe? Because, like, my family is actually from Ghana, and I have family that lives, like, outside of, was it Frankfurt or Berlin and whatnot, and so, the way they've kinda come up is so different to mine, and I feel like I've kinda used that to inform my experience in certain ways. With you being there, how did that maybe shape your perspective on your Black experience?
Didn't really have much. I
Mhm,
mean, I would say, there's not a lot of discrimination in Germany, like there is in the States. I mean, if there is some, it's usually more so against, like, the refugees and everything, and not no more so discrimination is really that they're saying, we don't want all these people, in our country and everything, which is a fair and a valid point. I mean, it's like from anywhere. I mean, right now, like we're saying, like all the Mexicans that are coming over right now and across the border, it's like, well, no, we don't want them in our country either. Why should they just get to come into our country and and then you have to like give them stuff and like then our tax and everything is going towards taking care of people, that just moved to the country and they're getting free stuff as opposed to we've been here and working, things like that. So everything was more so, from that perspective. But
mm,
I mean, just thinking about it, like, you know, it's a great question that you ask. And then I don't really think about it, too much. I mean, I just know like over there, they weren't racist, at least none that
mm,
I saw. And so, but like racism exists, especially in America. There's always going to be racist. And so, because of that, I mean, you have to get used to, you have to learn how to, fight the system. And I've been seeing a little bit, it's like they're fine with me being black up until a certain point. When once you pretty much once you cross the line, then they have an issue. It's like you're running a race, there's 100 people, they're fine with you finishing top 10. They don't want you to podium. And so
mm,
then once you podium, then that's when they have an issue with. If you finish 5th, finish 7th, they're like, "Oh, congrats, great job." They have no issue with you. You finish 3rd, or if you even win it, then they're gonna, start having some issues, with that because and it's I mean, racism is always going to exist. Now, there's so far, I've only, had a feeling because I mean, I pretty much looked at all the reasons why stuff could be, happy taking place, whatever it might be, and that was the only thing like left that I could think of. I've always been a person that's been like never thought anything was racist, whatever. And I mean, being in, black male in the esports industry right now, this is the first time I ever think actually, okay, I think some form of racism is taking place. And then when I look at, successful black entrepreneurs, typically, obviously there's some exceptions, but typically there's, when they're doing really well, like the companies I've been seeing recently, it's like they're having companies, they aren't really like becoming huge, aren't making like a huge name for themselves, or they're doing something, DEI related, which, some states even started to ban DEI initiatives, which that
yeah,
in itself was like a whole scam to begin with. Cause I mean, it's like, for example, our staff, we've always been very diversified, male, female, different ethnicities, we have black, whites, Asians, whatever. I put zero effort into diversity, equity, inclusion. We hire the person that's best for the job. We've always had very diverse staff. And so I really feel that if more organizations, were to do that, you know, then, would it be so I'm not sure if it's like, I mean, what is the reason? Is it racism? Is it actually this person's better? Is it that, some, might be uncomfortable? I mean, you never know what the actual reasons are. And so that's why, it's very challenging for me to, really answer that and be able to, just say that. Cause I mean, discrimination used to be clear, like, when my parents were growing up, discrimination was clear, like, I mean, it was said straight out. Now, it's a little bit more challenging because you're in a corporate company, you may say this person was more qualified for the job, and it's
yeah,
like, I mean, you can't it's very challenging to fight and argue, so, I mean, somebody because my dad always said, he said, "You're black, you have to be better," like, he wasn't gonna sugarcoat anything like that. And I mean, really, at this point, with some things that may occur and go on, but I know my dad even said in Medtronic, he said they would promote black people when he worked there. He said they promote black people, but then they would promote the ones that they knew weren't gonna really, do well at the job. And so he said, well, we gave them a chance, and then we prove
Yeah.
it. So I mean, in I nothing so far that I can, like, say without a doubt 100% guaranteed certain is racism, but, the thing is, the longer things go on, I have had, like, some situations where it's like other people have asked, "Well, why aren't you working with Caleb? Why isn't Caleb involved?" He's like, the number 1 person in esports in the area,
Yeah.
why isn't he's constantly doing things, been in business for now it's 3 plus years before, even being 2 plus years, like, why is he not, being involved in this? And so thankfully I myself haven't had to, call any race card and thing because I mean I don't want to be wrong either. It's the last thing I want to do, even if I'm like, 99.9% sure I don't want to like just come out and say something. But
Yeah.
then, because of that, I can which I mean, I will propose the question, how come there are no black people in the organization? I
Yeah.
know even one time there was this, conference my dad went to, and this one woman, she was saying, like, 40 years ago, I was coming to conferences like this or talk like this. No one looked like me. And then fast forward 40 years later, I come to conferences like this and still no one looks like me. And then she's like, "Oh, I need people." And then my dad's like, "Oh, well, I'm sure Caleb would want to speak there." And then that puts her in a very tough position because there's no way, you can't put on, because I mean, you can't say I'm not qualified. You can't say any of this. I mean, you know, I'm just like, okay, if I'm not qualified, who is?
Yeah.
Being a business and the awards and all that speak for itself. So that's, well, I mean, that's another thing, that we could be fighting as well. Some people make that their enemy. That's still not my enemy. I won't say what it is, but
Yeah.
other people make that their enemy. Proving black excellence, being an example, and making a pathway. And the thing is that I'm able to get more blacks and opportunities, and we're able to be access certain opportunities. So, for example, one company, we're not allowed to say which one. Like I can say, just not like on camera, so I'm going to be recorded, but
Gotcha.
they actually contracted us out for their MLK Day, to go in and do an activity for the kids. So, I mean, it's a big time company. We went into the corporate campus, and did that. And then, we're doing an event next week, with the National Society of Black Engineers. There's something called Nesby Junior. We have companies like sponsoring like Red Hat and Toshiba, and then other companies that may not be able to sponsor, but like Wolfspeed and Cisco that are going to be present at the event. So it's about being able to do things like that. And then, the employees of the companies that are black, tell them about that. And they come around and say, oh, yeah, we want to support, because we have these different, whether affinity groups or whatever they might call them. So, you know, it's really learning that, we have to fight, but at the same time, you can't help somebody unless if they, wanna help themselves. I mean, I'll help anybody, but it's like, I talk to people all the time, so, "Oh, yeah, hit me up, I wanna help you out." They said, "Would you be open to X, Y, and Z?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely, shoot me a message." Majority of the time, people never do.
Yeah. There wow, you there was a lot of game and awesome perspective that you had in there, Caleb, and one thing I wanted to touch on a little bit, like, something you kinda said early in that was, like, how, like, society and you were kinda I guess you were kinda talking about Germany, but it's really like America too, like, in that, like, America, so to speak, will allow, like, black people to be in the race now and allow them to finish top 10, but they almost won't let, like, black people get past a certain point. Like, for me, like, I just think about athletics or entertainment where black people are making so much money, but
Well, that's
how
the
they're
one where they let you, but then the thing is, if you think
exactly.
about it, they let but then I know someone one time, my dad told me Bill Cosby was gonna buy some TV network or something, whatever. They killed his son, and then, you know, it's the thing at the I don't remember who it was, maybe Dion or somebody else, but it's about, "Oh, now, you get into black, you get all the black players, you get into black coaches, whatever. We see how much these sports teams are worth." And then somebody said, "Well, what about the black owners?" It's a great point because it's like, okay, these teams are now in the past 10 years have, grown, like, and worth by $1 billion, but who's it all going to? People behind the scenes. And that is the thing, most wealthy people, you don't actually know who they are. They're behind the scenes. Like most people don't
Exactly.
know who the CEO of like, Google and Microsoft and all these other companies are. IBM, whatever, like, people know about Gates and Jobs and, those, big time people. But I mean, even a lot of people don't even know who Warren Buffett is, when you talk about, I mean, it's just because is why would you? I mean, obviously in the business community, most people are gonna know who these people are, but just regular ordinary people, like with the exception of like Jerry Jones and Mark Cuban, I know Tillman Fertitta because of his book, but that's because I learned about him through a business book. But I mean, besides, Mark Cuban and Jerry Jones, who really knows about any sports team owners? I mean, people in North Carolina know about David Tepper just because he's been in the news all the time about how terrible he's done with the Panthers. But overall, people don't know that the people know the coaches, people know like the big time players. No one really knows the owners. Same thing with all these like private equity companies and things like that. Nobody knows, the owners of that, who invests in it, or whatever. But everybody knows, like which is really entertainment based. That's where black people have really, succeeded, has been in entertainment. But then, you see like opening up their own studios and things like that, they're very limited to what they can do. They talk about, oh yeah, well, whoever I'm trying to remember what the company was. I think was it Apple that bought Beats by Dre?
I believe it was Apple.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, well, look how much money he's making." I'm like, "Yeah, but then look at how much money, they were making behind the scenes and stuff." So it's like, and also who else had invested money in that and everything. I mean, it's very challenging, you know, to beat that because it's like if a private equity company was to come up in here and say, "Oh, yep, $100 million we'll give you for the company." It's like, what am I gonna do? Say no to that? I mean, it's a it's like they're always gonna win. It's like, they make you think you won, but which I mean you did, but at the same time, it's like they're the ones that are actually, winning and paying off. It's like, yeah, Peter Thiel invested in Facebook. And there's like, "Oh, yeah, they think it was a win. We got an investment in Facebook." I think it's $500,000. I'm talking about something $1 billion what it turned into. So it's like, yeah, well, you won, but I mean, he's the one who really won and stuff.
Exactly. There's
So
levels to it.
it's all, I mean, entertainment is the only industry that they've allowed blacks to succeed in, you know, and then and I mean, really nothing wrong with it, but I mean, our thing too is like, we want to get, there's very few that can become professional athletes, these artists, content creators, whatever it might be. We want to get them, oh yeah, how can we help you get, high income, six-figure job, save and invest, go on, you and your friends start your own private equity hedge fund, VC, do you like your investing, whatever it might be. Cause at least in this area, maybe like in Atlanta or Chicago, Detroit, it could be slightly different, but here it's like everyone's white. Like I don't even recognize it anymore. Like I mean, I'm just so used to like no one else being black, place I go to, everybody being white at all these business meetings, conferences, whatever. It's like I walk in there and it's like I was thinking back later, I'm like, I don't think there were any black people, in that group, whatever, but it's just become such the norm now. And so the thing is, we need to get more black people in there. And the thing is a lot of black people too, like are uncomfortable about that. Like growing up in Durham, which is predominantly black, my dad was like, "You guys are not going to public school, one, because public schools are terrible, which now private schools are just as bad. But also he said, you all need to be around white people. You need to be around, diverse. That's the way the world is. That's where, you need to be in." And so because of that, I don't feel that discomfort or being uncomfortable or anything like that. A lot of, it's like, I mean, one day, it was the Raleigh Convention Visitors Bureau had a conference. And, there was like the annual meeting, like, conference showcase, what they had done probably less than 10 black people there. It was a couple
Mhm.
hundred people there. I go to the Cary Chamber business after hours. Same thing, probably like at least 60 people. They may have been pushing like 80, 100, less than 10 black people there. And then I go that evening to an event with Blacks in Technology. Everybody like 2 or 3 people were black that were there. And so it's like they go to what makes them comfortable. I'm like, you can't do that. You have to go to, where the business where everybody's at. And the thing is, I asked other people what other network they went to, and it was like this other group was like black something or whatever. I'm like, you can't be doing that. You have to go. It's like they're trying to do like, talk like, oh, Black Wall Street, Black Wolf like this. I'm like, I get that, but it doesn't make sense. It's like because if you try to do that, if you try to set up, an area where you want to have all black businesses, I mean, it's pretty easy. It's like if people just say, "Oh, we're not going to go there, whatever, we're not going to do that." I mean, you know, and there's always like, gerrymandering and there's stuff that the government could do, to combat that. But like if we set up businesses, if we take, you know, just say the 20 nicest shopping centers in the area, a black person sets up a business in each one. What are they gonna do? You're gonna shut down each one of those shopping centers, not actually shut it down like, but, you know, more of a metaphor in terms of do things to get like, they make that, "Oh, we're gonna start passing out drugs here. We're gonna start increasing crime here," things like that. You can do that at 20 nice shopping centers? No. So, that's the way to really to fight and combat it. And that's what, more of us have to do. And now people may be uncomfortable with it, but it's like, so what? That's what's necessary and required.
Yeah, no, those are really great points, Caleb. And yeah, being able to integrate like our black successful businesses or whatnot into like the greater infrastructure of America is like a challenge. And like as you said, like a lot of people just want us to like have our own like separate black America almost where you said like a black Wall Street and things like that come into play, but it's like, well, that can get like shut down, right? Like it's like almost like how do we almost integrate into the fabric of what's going on, like the corporate structure of America. And I think that's been going on for years and years and will continue for years and years. But I guess for you, Caleb, and from what you've said, it sounds like there isn't a whole lot of, at least in the entrepreneurship side of like esports, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of black people. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it surely seems like that. I guess what would you say about like maybe the opportunity that's there for black people looking to carve a lane in the esports entrepreneurship business lane? Because I think, all races like play video games or into gaming, but I don't see a whole lot of like black people like into the gaming space and whatnot. What would you say about the opportunity that's available in your space for black and other diverse people?
Gotcha. So I only know one other black entrepreneur in the esports space, and that's Danny
Wow.
Martin or in Dallas. Well, I do know of another group, but it's community. They're in Atlanta, but they do like gaming tournaments and have like a HBCU esports league. So I'm like that, like I said, that stuff they're fine with because they're like, oh yeah, something for HBCUs, diversity, whatever. So, but we talk about ones that actually, have a straight up business, nothing DEI related. Danny Martin with Exposure in Dallas is the only person that I know of, and I actually got the pleasure of visiting there, in December. That's why I went on my Dallas trip, and,
Mm,
getting go by and seeing that they had a school come in and seeing the whole immersive experience. He took me on a tour for space, talked about what they were doing. It was fantastic, getting to see that in action. And so, Danny Martin is someone who's, had a lot of success and, bootstrapped the business. And, that's what we need more of, in terms of, like, entrepreneurs and everything, like, a lot of blacks aren't going to entrepreneurship, you don't see a lot of I mean, that's just as across the board as a whole, not even talking about, within the esports space, and then, even still, it's really comes to be, like, white males, like, even with, like, groups that we talk to, if you go to these colleges, say they actually start off well diverse, male, female, different races, and they said and then pretty much as the school year goes about, if they pretty much end up with white males. And, they also need someone that looked like them. That's another can be another deterrent. I mean, for me, like I said, that never had any effect or anything. Like, I played soccer, which it started getting to, more black people getting into it, but it was pretty white dominated, you know, and then, especially I was a goalkeeper, which was very white dominated, and but
mhm.
even still, I did that, and so, even go over Germany, which was, mostly white people. So, I mean, it's like, I never had, that issue, but, getting people out of their shell, out of their comfort zone and stuff. And I mean, too, we don't know what people's upbringing was, like they were told and anything, like some of them maybe growing up and say, oh, they're crooks, they're gonna try to, get over on you, whatever. I was never told anything like that. So I'm not really sure. I mean, we had, I mean, it happens. Like I had a friend, his dad got upset with him because he dated a white girl. I mean, like, so, like, what? I mean, but there's, some people like that. So overall, I mean, it really just all depends. Cause I mean, what I've really seen is like to help people, you really have to change their mindset. And to change somebody's mindset, that's something that's extremely challenging to actually be able to do, the upbringing, all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, people can definitely get into it, but it's like, you know, you pretty much have to lose this fear thing. You have to be willing to be hated and this stuff like that. People aren't gonna like you. I mean, and entrepreneurship is tough, and so to really get into it, I mean, I wouldn't like it's talk about black people getting into entrepreneurship and all that. I know they do say like blacks have issues, with funding and stuff like that. I mean, but I've also seen you know just different scenarios or situations. And then I think there may be a little bit of racism with that as well. But overall, I I don't see it so much within that. Maybe someplace where we have companies, and people, angel investors asking for looking for investors and VCs that have been interested in investing in us. So part of it could be too that that the business models just aren't, accurate or good, and then, I mean, there is a profiling that goes into it as well. So it's like, when I first started, it's like, we actually did look for investors, and it's like, "Oh, well, I had never been to college or anything, and so I didn't really have too much credibility." And so then no one chose to invest. It wasn't that they would really discriminate. They say, based upon, the statistics where they had like, one VC company said they would have passed on Zuckerberg just because he was really young, and like they said with what they see, they said, the companies that do well between this age to this age, have these type of businesses, this type of team, et cetera. And so they have to stick to, what, their profile says gives them the highest chance to succeed. Now, of course, you're going to miss out on, huge opportunities, but it's like, overall they're going to do well because if their goal is say we want to get a 15% a year annual return, then well, if that's by sticking to that whole profile, then they're getting that. Now, obviously, they can adjust it, every few years based upon what they're seeing. So, um, it's very challenging to say. I mean, it's like anything else. How do you get into something? I mean, there's no like social club or anything like that. I mean, it's just a mentality. Like, you have to feel like you belong, and want
Yeah.
to be there, and do everything possible to make it happen.
You talked a lot about mindset and, like, how you have to learn how to be hated almost, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to fail. How in your personal experience, like, how did you become comfortable with being hated and with accepting failure?
I'm not really exactly sure. No, I just accepted from a young age. I mean, failure was something I was taught, it's like failure is testing, failure is how you learn, all that. You kind of have setbacks. But I mean, being hated, I mean, there's a lot of quotes from it, but I mean, it's something that's going to happen. I mean, people aren't going to, you know, people aren't going to like you, for no reason whatsoever. People aren't going to like you, and especially if you're doing something. And it's like, I go to sports games, I hear people yelling and criticize the pro athletes. I'm like, yeah, like y'all could do better and stuff like that. So, I'm honestly, I mean, I think it's really about the upbringing, because stuff like they say like self-esteem is built first 7 years of life. And, obviously I don't remember most of my first 7 years of life. And so that's really, I guess it like really comes down to a lot of people's upbringing. And then,
Yeah.
realizing because I see all the time, like, still hated by people. Like you're going to, get hate, you're gonna get people not liking you. And I mean, it's just like the, best performers at anything are the most hated.
At what point I guess for like in your individual situation, and as you've clearly you've said it really well, like it's really hard to like give specific advice to some people just because like the mindset and the background they came up in have a play a big role in where someone is at currently, right? But like just knowing like your context and your background and the mindset that may have been cultivated in you, maybe even subconsciously, like through those first 7 years of life, what do you think are the things that you did to uh like in terms of setting the legs of the foundation to turn your passion for esports into an actual business? What are some of those foundational things, those first steps that you took to kind of to kind of set yourself up for the position you're at now?
Yeah, great question. So I've already knew what esports was. I didn't realize that was as big as what it was. And I'm somebody told me about Twitch. I was like, oh, okay. And then Gary Vaynerchuk said that, he was starting a Twitch channel. I was like, okay, like I was following him, like pretty heavily. So I was like, I'm gonna look into this. And I think one of the first streams I came across was Ninja, and there was some others. And I was like, I saw that. I was like, how does he have this many people watching him? when I started doing more research on esports, I was like, "This is awesome." I said, "I wanna get into this industry," especially seeing I was an Asian, things like that. And then that's the thing, always be passionate about something because, I was really passionate about it. And, with being very passionate about it, because even you see now where the industry is in a tough spot and it's tanked, was the passion that's kept me in this and going, whereas other people have gotten out of it quick just because 'cause they're like, "Yeah, it's tough, whatever, can't do much because they didn't have that passion." And so, you know, it was what? So August of 2018 was when I came up with the idea, and then, I was just searching for opportunities, looking at stuff. Everything I looked at, you know, these companies were going out of business, and I heard that they were losing money, so I was very patient with it, and I finally found the opportunity of a gaming center, and then, obviously, things didn't work out the way they were supposed to with it, but then, I mean, it's like anything, with businesses, like, they talk about even though some of the most successful companies said the reason why they invest in the entrepreneur is because they said the idea may or may not actually work. They said the idea is probably gonna, that idea is probably gonna fail. Most companies, what they start off with is not what they actually, did. Like the company that made sticky notes, they were actually trying to make some type of glue and it didn't work. But, you see multi-million dollar or maybe even billion-dollar company, of sticky notes. And so, you know, I mean, a lot of people don't get the opportunity that I did, being that they saw something they wanted to do, that they were really passionate about it. They were able to pursue it, and I was able to pursue it, you know, as it was up and coming. And right now it's in a very tough spot, but keeping
Yeah.
myself relevant in the industry, we're looking at, different options to set ourselves up for when it has, its next explode, bull run, whatever it might be. Because even when you look at professional sports, those struggled for a long time. The internet, the dot-com bubble burst, and you look at the internet now and all the tech companies. And so, I mean, you should be, I mean, it's different, when you talk about passion, with what, if you're gonna be starting a business, you should be passionate. Now, it may be passionate about solving a problem, but, you should have passion. For example, people may not, it's like, am I passionate about, you know, stocking shelves of food? No. But if am I passionate about people, that don't have that with food insecurity about getting food and getting nutrients? Yes. So then I go and I stack the shelves. So, that's the difference. Like, would I just go and stack shelves? Like, if I was like my day job, would I actually like, oh, love this so much. Unless it was paying this ridiculous amount of money. Most like if you make like $10 an hour stacking shelves of food, you probably want to enjoy it. Now, if you're volunteering to help people with food insecurity, you're going to enjoy it. If you
Yeah.
would make like 25, $30 or more an hour, then yeah, you'd probably enjoy it. Cause I mean, I worked a job making face shields, and then that job paid well. So it's like, yeah, I really enjoyed that one. And the people I was working with were super chill. So, you know, it's always about, when they say be passionate, it's about be passionate about what, some people like certain jobs and can say, oh yeah, I'm passionate about the fact that I'm able to provide for my family. This job gives me like the work-life balance. Now, the job in itself, if they just had to do that, it's like, would they choose that job? Probably not. But then they're passionate about that, like, oh, it helps me provide for my family, helps me give the flexibility, spend time with my kids. I get to go to the sporting events, have weekends off, whatever it might be that, someone's passionate about. And so it's not necessarily more so like, I wish I am passionate about video games. It's not like, oh, super passionate about this and the business. So what I do is that I'm really passionate about, helping and influencing youth. And, video games is one thing I enjoy. So that's the outlet I get to, use it in. Soccer is one thing, that I love, enjoy. And I coach, soccer for high school. So, it's about, being able to, impact, youth and, make a difference and having that purpose, and that's where the passion really comes in, because my passion is really, making an impact and difference in the lives of youth. And so now it just happens that things I enjoy, such as soccer and um video games, that happens to be those things. But, if it was something, if it was like, oh, we need help, stocking shelves, for food insecurity or whatever it might be, I would enjoy that because for now we volunteered at a food pantry. We enjoyed that because we were, helping and making a difference in other people's lives. And so there was that purpose that came in with what we were doing, which is what led us to enjoy it. Now, if we were just like doing that for no reason, like if we were doing that for some billionaires, like would we enjoy that? Probably not. I mean, maybe because we were doing it together, but, like, overall,
Mhm.
would we enjoy that? Probably wouldn't enjoy that
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get that. And for you, Caleb, what do you want to become in the esports business? Like, I don't know if you look in years or decades or whatever, but like what is like the one thing or two things that like you want to become in the esports space?
So I haven't really put much thought into that. Really I focus on like the purpose and the mission. And that's, to really influence, impact youth, through what we do, help as many youth as possible, help them, with their careers and their goals and to, figure out where they want to be and, and really encourage them, whether it be, somebody says, I want to get to entrepreneurship. Somebody says, I want to, find, like the right career, get into a trade or something. You know, it's really, in the esports industry itself, it does that itself doesn't really matter. I mean, like, there's some things I like to. Yes, I would love to own top professional esports org, yeah, but it's more so how many lives am I truly impacting and being helping, throughout youth. And so, the esports is the outlet that could do that. Soccer's an outlet that get to do that. There's different outlets that get to do that. So it's not esports, in itself. It's more so, the helping the lives and impact youth. Now, here's the thing. If I can own a top 10 professional esports or great, fantastic. Would love to do that, love to see them, win some championships and things like that.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, mission being mission driven is awesome. I think a lot of the most successful people across fields, that's like a common trait in them. And I hope people are really listening to what you're saying. Like focusing on the mission and everything else, those accolades, like in your case, maybe having a top 10 esports joint, whatever, like all that can come, but as long as you're focused on the mission, like everything else will fall in its place. So I really love what you said there. Kind of winding down here, Caleb, where can people uh, find out more about the North Carolina Esports Academy, more of what you guys are, what your company is doing, and where they can maybe tap in with you guys on social media?
Great, yeah, so we have a website, NC Esports Academy, and then our socials are NC Esports Academy. We're on LinkedIn. I myself am on Instagram, Caleb_V_Smith, and then LinkedIn as well. I can be found on there. And then, feel free to reach out, anyone, anytime. Always happy to have esports conversations.
Love it. And for all you listening, all that information will be in the description. So please be sure to tap in with Caleb, who's clearly doing great stuff. Last one for you. What does Black success mean to you?
So, well, I mean, I know what success means, and then that's, someone maximizing their potential and living life on their terms. I mean, that's different from everybody. Some people that, like I said, it's raising a family. Others, it's being a super successful entrepreneur. Others, it might be helping others and, they could be someone that's, regular income where they volunteer a lot and help others. So, and success is defined by someone themselves, a person themselves, you know, I mean, for me, my definition of success may be completely different, from somebody else's definition of success, And so as long as they're doing something they're passionate about, doing to the best of their ability. I know a lot of people, it's like they have businesses, but they pretty much got to the point where they were making enough money and then now they say, oh yeah, they're putting time and attention to their kids and to helping others, things like that. I mean, I think that's fantastic, So it really just all depends. But obviously, there's 3 things where I say, like, define, success, it's health, uh, relationships, and wealth, and the wealth really helps amplify those 2. So, like, health, being healthy, I mean, because life is pricey, getting, proper food with nutrients, being able to afford, like, water filters, things like that, having the time to exercise, everything, health is a very important because if you're sick, doesn't really matter what type of money you have. Relationships, think I mean, obviously, having relationships helps you live longer, leads to happiness, and then, the wealth part, because if you're always scrambling and struggling, well, that will impact your relationships and your health, and then you're
Mhm.
constantly in the rat race, and then also with the wealth, I mean, it makes things better. It's like, one time I was at, nice steakhouse. It was actually this event that was going on. And the guy knew, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm probably gonna after this go sit at the bar and get a steak." I was like, "Okay, I'll join you." And so it's like, spend $80 right there. But it's like, a lot of people couldn't afford just to spend $80 out of nowhere, without expecting to. And so that's something, the wealth there helped, improve the relationship, you know, and then and then also being able to like, oh, go and visit somebody, go to travel somewhere, especially when we talk about health, it's like, wanting to afford the food that, is higher quality will may cost twice as much. But then, you're able to, you have the wealth to be able to afford that. So I mean, it all depends on, I mean, everyone's definition of success is different. And so but yeah, I mean, if they have those three things and are living life on their terms, then that's what someone's being successful. I mean, you say black success, that's just, success within black people. But I mean, I don't typically look at, race, color, anything like that myself. It's all, I always look at, we're all people, we're all humans, whatever, if aliens were to come down and attack us, it
It doesn't matter if you're
pretty
black, white, or
it
Asian.
doesn't matter what ethnicity, what religion, what everything like that. It's like talk about the enemy. It's like, yeah, we're each other's enemies, but then there's a bigger enemy that, makes us allies and unifies us. And so
Mhm.
then it's, completely different. So that's why I'm always like, if that were to happen, you would not hear anything about any borders, you would not hear anything about any, religious group, whatever it might be, etc. You know, they'd be like, we need to pray. It's like, all right, well, God, well, you all need to pray and all this stuff. Would anybody care, because all would we be having a new enemy that's more of a threat for us to focus on. And then once they leave and evacuate or we kill them all, then we're just gonna go back to us, hating each other again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a sad reality, but yeah, love the points you made about what was it, health, relationships, and wealth. So I really hope people listen to that and internalize that. Caleb, thank you so much for your time, and for all you listening, appreciate you for tapping in with Pinnacle Code. As always, you can find, please subscribe to the show on YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications, and the show is also on focused primarily on what is it, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. So please be sure to tap in with those pages. But until next time, I'll see you guys soon. And Caleb, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.